I feel, I was here at the beginning of the overall rec area. In fact, Mike Gentile and Phil Landborg, who was the deputy commissioner at IRRB, and I drove up in a very small little car, and this whole area was owned by a small nonprofit that was started by a bunch of executives from Erie Mining Company, and we looked and we thought, well, we could, it was teetering on bankruptcy, so we decided we were going to buy it and pay the debts off and maybe make some real modest investments. And then we bumped into Governor Rudy Perpich, who decided, hey, we're going to make this thing really into something. And so I got to give a little credit to that early years when we decided to make the investment up here. But I also wanted to mention some people that aren't with us anymore. Jim Gustafson was the commissioner when they made the decision to build the golf courses, and I'm not sure, I'm going to miss some names of who the board members were, but they're the usual suspects. And they, and that took a lot of courage because, if the mining industry was down, we lost about 25% of our population in this whole region, and then to invest in ski hill and golf courses was a little bit of a stretch, and it took a lot of courage. And so I want to thank those people that have the courage. Brian Heedy, who's back here, wave Brian, is deputy commissioner under, Brian and I had a long history with the agency too. And so this is kind of a rerun for me this time around for Dayton and Walls coming back. So I was here in the early 80s and then came back more recently. But so I just want to thank the staff. You mentioned Linda, but Mike Gentile, Mike and I worked in the grants area for the agency, and then they tapped Mike to run Giants Ridge, and he did a hell of a job, and got both these golf courses up and running and everything. So I want to thank him for that. And then the other thing is the economic impact of this place. So when I first got appointed for Dayton, I'm trying to think the year now, 2015, we made the top of the fold of the Star Tribune. Giants Ridge lost money or whatever, and then I had to appear for all these legislative committees, and they said, why do you keep this place? So we did an economic impact study, and the benefits associated just with in the zip codes that are right around here is about, at that time, was about $45 million a year. And the last time we ran the thing, it was about $55 million a year. And we recently have developed a business plan that's going to take a few more investments, but we think that this could probably have the potential of about $100 million a year impact. And again, that's just in the zip codes right around the facility here. And the amount of money we put in here is at the time when we did the first economic impact study was about $45 million over, again, many decades. So we've already gotten our money back in 1 year for the investment we made. So Giants Ridge has been a solid economic development boost for this end of the east end of the Iron Range, and it continues to bring economic impact year after year. So I just want to thank you for inviting me today and having me, and with that, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was wonderful. So Linda brought over the a poster from the original grand opening back on Saturday, June 28th, which is it's awesome that it just happened to fall on the same day as today, 25 years ago. Lanny Watkins, Craig Stadler, Robert Wren, and Brett Hull had his charity skins game. So Linda, I'd like for you to kind of tell about the day and just the experience. Or I don't know if you were there, but you brought the poster and just some good experiences on from that event, and just really also too kind of what Commissioner Mark Phillips said about just the impact, if you wanted just to add on that.
Sure. First of all, thanks everyone for coming. We've got a great day scheduled for everyone. That day, I can remember back, Greg Weyers, Minnesota Golfer magazine, or Golf Minnesota, sorry, magazine was here that day. Some of you also may have been here. It was a beautiful day. Jeff was here, of course, opening, and Mike Gentile, who Commissioner Phillips had mentioned. He passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately, but he was a big promoter of the golf course and worked through so many obstacles and environmental issues that we had that you know, it's a miracle that we were able to even get the course open. And then shortly thereafter, of course, the quarry came in 2003. And again, thanks to Jeff for designing that. But again, a repeat of this day, no skins match this time, but again, yeah, but thanks for coming. Take a look at this poster. It's really nice. It's just a really good memento of the day. And again, have a great day. The rain is going to push off, right? And it should turn out to be fabulous. So thanks again.
Fred, John, I'd like to thank you guys again for dialing up perfect weather. Texas, I'm escaping 103-degree heat to be here, so this is heaven. This is absolutely heaven. But I'd like for you to, I would like for you two to kind of talk about just from an operations standpoint, just John, especially you since you've been here since its infancy, about just the growth of golf, not only here, but that the Legend was able to sort of spearhead the growth within the region for golf, and also to just just the impact economically that you all have had for the resort.
Yes, thank you, Robert. I came up here in February of '98. Moved here from Texas, where golf is obviously a much bigger thing, year-round activity, and didn't really know what to expect coming up here. My family is from here. My grandparents were born and raised here, so I always came up in the summertime, but didn't really know much about the golf market here. Needless to say, it was much more than I expected. The success of the Legend course, Mr. Phillips is right. It was really going out on a limb, building this first golf course, but we immediately saw that it was successful and something that could sustain over a long period of time. Second golf course was under construction, and we saw that people really took notice because just a quick tally between when the Legend opened and the quarry opened, there were 12 direct competitors, all upper end public courses that we identified that were open between our two golf courses. So it was really impressive to see how the success of this golf course really shaped northeastern Minnesota, the golf market, really drove other areas in our region to be better. We quickly went from, holy cow, I can't believe this is up here on the Iron Range, to now they expect really world-class golf in our area, which I don't think anybody ever had envisioned. But thanks to the agency for giving us the opportunity to do this. And it's their foresight, Jeff's design. I tell everybody, I've never been to a facility that has the quality of the two golf courses, but you would never guess that they are 1.5 miles apart. They play so differently, but they are both just excellent golf courses, not only for just the recreational player, but for people that are very serious, very competitive golfers. It's a wonderful facility, and I am just very proud to be part of it. And thank each and every one of you. Everybody here has had a hand in our success, not only what we've done in the past, but what we're going to do in the future. So just from all the operations, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And really, as I noted, this not only honors the golf course, but also to the people that helped shape and form it. We've heard so much from various people about who all were involved in making this all work and making this happen. But Jeff Brauer, again, really just conjured up a masterpiece out here with the Legend Golf Course. So I'd like for him to take a few minutes to not only talk about some of the best memories you had from the design standpoint, but also to just everything from the routing to the bunkering, and just really what all entailed to really make this dream come into reality. Mr. Jeff Brauer.
Thank you. Well, first, thanks for inviting me up here. If this is 25 years since opening, that means I've been coming up here for 28 years, maybe 29, 28 and a half, somewhere in there, because this was not easy to design, and it was not easy to build. I don't know if you invited anyone from Park Construction up here, but they did a masterful job on both these courses. Giants Ridge, Iron Range, northern Minnesota, just become such a big part of my life. I don't think there's been a year that I haven't been back up here just because I enjoy it, that much. So the first question, he gave me some softballs here to answer, is, what attracted you to the site? And it's like, Texas, tumbleweed is a specimen tree. And so, if you want to know what did I see in this site, it's like, there you go. It was nothing I'd ever seen. I had been to Minneapolis as a kid on vacation. I'd heard of the Iron Range. Actually, my grandfather worked on the railroad docks in Ohio where they unloaded all the ore that came from here. So it was always kind of interesting to me to see what the other end of this looked like. It's just a fascinating region. The people are great. We had a little touch, with Mark on the politics. John was here, Linda was here. Very progressive thinkers. You guys are fortunate. The IRRB was, not anything you think of the stereotype of government. They're very progressive, very easy to work with, very community-minded. And somebody asked me about synergy, which is kind of a buzzword, but the first time I ever used it was here because, Mike Gentile in particular, we just got along of the drive up. I just knew it was going to be a fun project to work with. He was perfect. He was a golfer, but not a great golfer. And so he gave us some broad general directions and then kind of let us go on our own. And if you're an architect, that's about all you can ask for. One thing, of course, everyone asked about the footprint. So that was my idea. I'm not against a little whimsy. You're not going to drive all this way. You want to see something, right? I would apologize if you drove all this way and said, yeah, that's the course with the footprint. If there was nothing else out here, then, that would be a kind of a cheesy thing. And I even had the idea that I'd do that one where it just fits naturally on the third hole, and maybe another one down the fairway, and maybe a half a foot in the woods behind the green to suggest the movement of the giant. And Mike succinctly told me that the joke is only funny once. So we have, that was about all the design direction that I got. But you ask about memories. As good as this is, like I say, it wasn't easy to design, wasn't easy to build. This was at one of the peaks of the environmental movement, so this faced a lot of environmental scrutiny. I think it took a year and a half. At the time, I used to do my concept routings as A, B, C, D. I ran out of letters here. I had to go back to double A, double B, double C. And we'd do meetings, and the public would kind of filter in and filter out, and something we settled in September to come back in October, somebody new would say, well, did you ever consider going over this way? So it took a long time to get permitted. Again, it's beautiful land. They should have looked at us closely, and we tried to do the best we could. But I think it was about $1 million worth of permitting costs that we went through to get this thing right and satisfy the environmentalists. And then, of course, they're not always happy. No one ever is, So the 26 routings, the other thing I get asked about is, the gap in the golf course. But just north of 1 and 10, that's Forest Service land. And they did look into buying that to have a more contiguous golf course, but we were told it was a very long process. Had we elected to do that, this would be the grand opening ceremony. So I'm kind of glad we did. Obviously the split in the golf course isn't ideal. Oh, the other thing about that though is 138 was supposed to be built up the hill where the path is now, and it still hasn't happened. I don't know, maybe you can move that forward. And at least the drive, we envisioned it would be along the lake and would be, really something special. Of course, the other question I always get is the 17th hole, and you see that and you say, well, we got our Cypress Point or whatever. Little known fact though, while the 17th was always there are versions of that that were a par 4 to get it back closer to shorten the walk up, and that might have been a good hole. The environmentalists thought that was too much that might drain in. That green, by the way, sitting there does not drain into the lake. We were not allowed to drain anything to the lake just in case, somebody got crazy with pesticides or there was a mistake, which happens, not very often. The other thing was, part of the game of getting this thing permitted is giving them something to say no to. I think I can say that now after all these years. Right? So there was actually a plan to take 17 out to the island as a par 4 for the first shot, and then from the island, about to where the green is now. And the real reason that was on there was they could say no to that, and par 3 seemed acceptable to them. But it's what we wanted all along. I don't think the IRRB was going to pop for too long footbridges or cart bridges over the lake. So the 17th is always there. Let's see, footprint, covered the footprint. Just the great land. I remember I got the topo maps of this thing, like say 94 or something, and I saw the mountain. There's a lot of contours on here, and it was crazy looking. I was actually a little afraid of it looking at the topo because I had never seen a map with that many squiggle lines on it. Fortunately, we got out here and started getting around, and this was the biathlon training area, so there are paths all through there. I mean, still you get through there, then you can still see 5 foot, well, it's another tree. What do you know? Another boulder. So it's one of those things you actually had to route mostly on the topo map and get it cleared, and then there were always a few surprises. But going back to the land, not only they had 90 acres, I think, is what we had around the ski hill, and it ended right there. So we had to find some parcels of land, and that was, of course, the one on 16 I told you. The other one's holes 4 and 5. Somebody owned that, and we went out and purchased that. Well, basically to get 18 holes in. Nobody wanted to go to a 12-hole golf resort, in those days. So that sort of explains the configuration of it. But we knew people were going to ride carts. Again, to me, it's not an unpleasant drive at all. I mean, I don't mind riding the carts through the golf course. So that worked out. So let's see. Other memories here. Well, you mentioned one of them. Everybody was against us, right? And now everybody thought, I was behind you all the way, right? But you mentioned the newspaper coverage, and I have them somewhere in a file. But I mean, the thing started as $4.3 million for the golf course. We did have to change order for some very legitimate change order because the rock, it was unbelievable there. This was not easy to build. And again, I have to thank Park Construction because I'd never done a course like this with this kind of difficult, rock, mostly. And so they just said, don't worry, we know how to do this. So I was glad they hired a Minnesota contractor with experience up there because all those boulders, and they'd break some up and they'd pack them together until finally it made a solid sub base. We brought in 2.5 foot of clay from various spots. If you play the quarry, that second hole, that long strip of sand between the green and the tee, that is the topsoil that is under this golf course. They leased that and took the sand out of there. So that was all just very difficult. I didn't sleep a lot over the winter. They started building this and they're packing the rocks and there's water. If you stand on the 7th fairway, you can hear the subsurface water running under the fairway. So I'd never dealt with anything like that, and that worried me. Like I said, I didn't sleep a lot that winter, but I got back. I kind of half expected all the dirt to have gone through, and be carried away. But fortunately for Park Construction, they knew what they were doing, and they're obviously a big part of this success. The other one is, well, we talked about $4.3 million budget. It wasn't unlimited, state agency, and I think it actually contributed to the success of this place. You don't want to go here and see, health spas and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, we left the edges of the trees, didn't get cleared out a long way, and some of that was for budget, but it just sort of hit the Northwood feel almost by accident. It was too polished. This place wouldn't have been as successful as it is now. The last question I always get about Lanny Watkins, if you know anything about golf architecture, you always hear Jack Nicklaus or somebody designed a golf course. They like to think signature pros, design these things, but they all have a guy like me. And so Lanny was really paid to make 4 PR visits, so 3 plus the grand opening. But, everyone wants to believe these guys, know everything. So we bring them up. Lanny, I got to tell you, we're under construction. Here's the first thing you got to know. We want you to sound like you've been involved in this design more than you have. And there's a lot of rocks out there. I just told you, don't be surprised. So we stand right out here, and it was all rocks. They were still cleaning it up. And he said, man, there's a lot of rocks out here. So the press is saying, well, I thought you'd been here before, Lanny. He says, well, yeah, it looks different. Then we get to around the corner of the second hole. He goes, man, there's a lot of rocks out here. And then he gets to the third hole, and it was a little coarser language, but he said, man, I have never seen so many rocks in all my life. He used the F word in there. So we actually took brand new then Photoshop skills. The Boabic News had, Watkins says it's going to be a great course. So we Photoshopped that out and said, Watkins says, never seen so many rocks. I got a phone call. They didn't really print that, did they? But so anyway, that's a take. It took a long time to get this. I mean, 2.5 years maybe to design and permit. Took 2.5 years to construct. I think we wanted 2, and they just missed it, and we had to come back into the next spring, and that maybe pushed the opening back a little farther. but you know, it was a success from day one. So the good news is, you know, if you're a golfer, you like a mulligan. I mean, to me, the Quarry is the best mulligan, you know, anyone ever had. But this was successful from day one. It wasn't Lanny, it wasn't particularly me, but you know, one thing they did do is they made the decision with money at the end to sod everything. And they brought up a professional photographer, and he took pictures. And like I said, I was out there with tree branches holding over the bare spots that hadn't grown in yet, or they put them in shadows or whatever, like photographers can do. And then you went down to the Minnesota Golf Show, pre-March or whatever, and you know, I don't think anybody believed it, that there was a new course here that looks perfect, and you know, maybe they hadn't even heard of it till that time. But I think that photography, sodding the whole thing, I mean, it just hit the blocks running as a big success. So almost everything the IRRB did, I mean, you couldn't have done it any better. So I was happy to be a part of it. You know, I do what I do. I design golf courses. This was a great opportunity and a great site. You can't have a great golf course without a great site. And so there it is. So that's the basic story. I'm taking too much of your time, but you know, once you start talking memories, right, you could probably go 25 years worth. So, but anyway, I'm around today. I'll be at lunch. I'll be here afterwards. So if you have any questions I didn't cover, thanks for listening, and I'll be glad to take them.